Hi everyone, well it's that time of year. Powdery mildew can start creeping into your garden. Today I'm going to share with you some tips and techniques for controlling and preventing powdery mildew in your garden. Now powdery mildew is a fungal disease that's easily spread, carried by the wind, carried by your hands when you touch plants that you've already touched with powdery mildew, and also carried by dirty tools. I'm going to show you what powdery mildew looks like in a moment. But first off, it most commonly infects squash and cucumbers. Now these plants look really healthy right now. Let me show you first what powdery mildew does not look like. This is just a normal coloring of the leaves. And you can tell if it's powdery mildew or not when you rub the leaf and no powdery substance comes off. This is a normal coloring of the leaves and it is not powdery mildew. Now let me head over to another part of the garden and I'll show you what powdery mildew does look like in case you've never seen it before. Unlike other fungal diseases, powdery mildew does not have to have wet, moist conditions in order to grow. It does just fine in dry, warm conditions like we have for the most part here in California. However, the spores really do take hold and grow in moist, wet areas. And here I've got some kale actually that has some powdery mildew. Now this kale is an older plant. Older plants and older leaves are more susceptible to powdery mildew. And you can see here, there's some powdery looking spots here on the leaf. And when I rub it with my hands, you can see how it kind of comes off. So there are a couple of the older leaves here that are infected with powdery mildew. The first tip for controlling powdery mildew is, first of all, make sure that you prune any affected leaves. You want to clip them right at the base of the plant here, because sometimes the stem is also infected. You can see these leaves all the way down to the stem. Even the stem itself has some powdery mildew. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it as close to the stem as I can. And then I am going to dispose of this leaf. I'm not going to put it in the compost pile because I don't want it spreading to other areas of my garden. As I mentioned, powdery mildew is very easily spread. So I wash my hands, wash my pruners so I don't spread it. Even though powdery mildew can thrive in hot, dry conditions, it does need some moisture to really take hold. So another technique for avoiding and preventing powdery mildew before it even happens is to water your squash and your cucumbers at the bottom. So here, all throughout this garden bed and throughout my entire garden, I'm watering with drip irrigation because it's really important that you avoid as much as possible getting the leaves of your plants wet. So the drip irrigation is a really efficient way to water. Waters at the base where the plants need it the most, so it soaks down into the roots and avoids getting the leaves wet as much as possible. The third technique for avoiding powdery mildew in your garden is to trellis your plants and provide them with good air circulation so they dry off underneath. Now here we've got some cucumbers climbing up over this trellis. Lots of good air circulation down here. I'm also trellising my zucchini squash, which not only saves space, but does keep the plant up off the ground and again provides better air circulation to help avoid the powdery mildew. All you have to do for that is just feed the leaves up through the trellis as it grows, and there you go. To help increase the airflow here on the zucchini plant, I'm going to go back to tip number one and prune the bottom leaves. Now you saw how I pruned the affected leaves of the kale plant. For here, I'm going to prune preventatively and prune these bottom leaves. The plant really doesn't need these bottom leaves. Squash plants really doesn't need the leaves or the branches that are below the first blossom or the first squash. You see I've got one squash coming on right here. So it doesn't need these leaves, these branches, so I can go ahead and clip them off right at the main stem, help increasing the airflow underneath this plant and avoiding humid conditions. Another thing you can do to be proactive with powdery mildew is to apply an organic fungicide. Now I'm working with Bonide for this video and my favorite is Captain Jack's Neem Max. This is a 4-in-1 product. It's a fungicide, insecticide, miticide, and a nematicide. Now that may sound like a lot, but it really does work well. And you kind of have to know when powdery mildew generally comes into your garden and then spray a couple of weeks before that with the organic fungicide. And this one is really easy to apply. This is a concentrate, so it does make up quite a bit throughout the growing season. Has this handy little cap, which you can kind of pour it in to measure. And the directions are, on the back. You just follow those. And then I like to pour it into this spray bottle. It's a small 1-gallon pump sprayer. You mix it with water. Shake it up. These pump sprayers are really handy. You pump it, it gets all the air out, and then you spray it on your plants to help prevent the powdery mildew. Now you do want to spray in the morning or in the evening, not in direct sunlight. And I always like to do a test spray first with any garden sprays. I'll spray it on one leaf first, wait 24 hours because different plants react differently under different conditions. But I've already done my test spray with Neem Max and absolutely love it. I know it's going to react well here. I'm going to spray my plant, the top of the leaves and the bottom of the leaves. And Neem Max will not only prevent powdery mildew, but it will also treat the powdery mildew that might already be on your plant. And you want to spray about every 7 to 10 days if you do already have an infection, and every couple of weeks as a preventative measure. And Neem Max also has the added benefit of killing any chewing or sucking insects that might be on my squash plant. And it also really helps with spider mites, which are always a big problem for me on my tomatoes. Now what I want you to do is to get out there and apply some of these tips and techniques to control and prevent the spread of powdery mildew in your garden this summer. Head over to CallieKimGardenandHome.com. Our July subscription box is now available. You can get $5 off your first box with the code JULYSUBBOX. And make sure you comment below and let me know if you've seen any evidence of powdery mildew yet in your garden and what you're going to be doing to help control it. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.